Hello, welcome to season 3 of the Digital Rights Africa podcast, where we discuss everything privacy and data protection, child online protection, intellectual property rights, cybersecurity, and data governance issues across Africa. I am your host, Teki Akuetteh. And today on this episode, I have what we call Regulators Roundtable. And I'm very, very excited because we have been joined by.
Thank you. Baker Birikujja from Uganda.
Where are you coming from in Uganda?
Thank you. That's a very good question. I'm coming from the Personal Data Protection Office, which is Uganda's national regulator for data protection.
Thank you, Becca. And
Mosalanyane Mosala, and I come from South Africa, the Information Regulator of South Africa, and I'm the CEO.
yes, and the Information Regulator of South Africa is also the regulator of data protection in South Africa. So, gentlemen, thank you and welcome to the Regulators Roundtable. We just want to find out what's happening in your country. What are you doing? What are the new things that are coming up? What's exciting? What should we be shaking in our boots about? And so on. So I'll start with you, Mr. Mosala. How is South Africa doing? We've been very excited, and from the Africa Digital Rights perspective, last year we were in Johannesburg co-hosting the Data Protection Africa Summit with you, and we have always been excited at the prospect of South Africa taking the lead. So tell us a bit more about what is happening today in South Africa when it comes to data protection.
Exciting news happening, although in some instances not so exciting.
Okay.
But overall, the Information Regulator has been established. It was established in 2016, but it was just really building its capacity.
Yes.
But as from the 30th of June of 2021, the president finalized the law to be implemented, meaning the regulator had to start accepting complaints, process them, do assessments,
yes,
and perform all its work, educate the South African public, and make them aware of the law. So it has been exciting in that regard that finally we're no longer just a regulator that has the law, but the law could not be implemented. But we are a regulator that does its work, that goes out there and assess many companies, that also deals with complaints we receive from our data subjects about how their information is processed. But that also interacts with the communities and educate them on their rights to privacy.
I'll come back. Let me just find out from Baker, how is it going in Uganda? You're still new to the game, but not so new. But how is it going there?
It's going on well. The first very big one, we made 2 years in August of this year.
Congratulations. I should have brought a 2-year cake.
Thank you. So we made 2 years, and
yes,
within those 2 years, we made a reflection of what we were up to.
Mm-hmm.
We reached out to 200 entities in awareness sessions. And within those 2 years, we've been able to register over 2,000 data protection controllers and processors.
Okay.
So clearly 2 is a good number
great.
for us.
Yeah.
But beyond that, the enforcement has now started coming into play.
Wow. Should we be quicking in our boots?
You should, because most of the offenses in the Ugandan law have a criminal aspect to it. The director of Criminal Investigations Department has deployed a detective that is now situated in the office.
Wow.
So when we are to open police files,
Oh,
We
God.
have a detective in-house that actually looks at it and records
Oh,
the
wow.
statement
Wow.
from the Personal Data Protection Office.
Wow.
Then secondly, we now also we had an interaction with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, also assigned us a prosecutor.
Oh, my God.
So, as you know,
Prosecution all over?
Exactly.
Is that the intention, or maybe for only those that are not recalcitrant, I'd say?
Only those. Because we usually first write, especially those that have failed to register, telling them you need to register where we receive a complaint. Our guidelines tell the complainants within 30 days try and resolve. Where it fails, it's when we take on. But we're not stopping at just that. We've written to the Chief Justice to assign us a court to determine cases to do with privacy matters.
Oh, wow.
We're here to hear that. So once we block that in, then we'll quickly have the files. Possibly the next time.
Ugandans, get ready to comply, whether you like it or yes.
So the next time there, we are talking of the 200 awareness, 2,000 registered. We are willing to have similar numbers to do with the determination of cases at courts of law.
Wow.
Because
what if everybody is compliant?
Wouldn't want to do that. Why we are taking that particular stance is a number of companies we've noted from those that have registered are actually investing in compliance.
Yes.
Ensuring that these complaints can be resolved at that level. So those that are not doing anything and are violating the law, the provisions provided for in the law should be taken up. But lastly, also, we've ensured that at least we conduct a bit of training.
Okay.
Whereby, because as you've noted, in case someone wants to actually comply,
yes,
some may actually have the intention, and that can only be seen through the actions they've taken. So we are developing a curriculum whereby at least they'll be trained and we'll have records of those. So the law gives them a defense. If you've done everything that the law requires, but probably human error or anything happens and it so turns out you violate the law, then that can be considered by court.
That's a lot, but that's some significant progress in 2 years. Mr. Mosala, I just want to bring you in on what he's talking about, enforcement. And I also know that there's been quite a bit of enforcement in South Africa. What is that looking like? Are we also arresting or we are fining? And what is it looking like in South Africa?
Our enforcement mechanism is quite different from theirs because our law requires that you must have what we call an enforcement committee.
Okay.
When a matter is investigated, if it comes to us as a complaint, it's investigated and the investigators determine that it's a matter that they must refer to an enforcement committee. We then refer it to an enforcement committee. It's made up of independent people. They're not employees of the regulator.
Okay.
Then they look at the matter. If they agree with the investigators in terms of what has come out of the matter, they will then make recommendations to the board that is chaired by the chairperson of the regulator. And then we issue what you call an enforcement notice.
Okay.
And most of the time, enforcement notice are sort of helping organizations to comply where there's been non-compliance.
Okay.
You are given a certain period of time within which you must comply. And then if you fail to do that, we issue what you call an infringement notice.
Okay.
Which has got a fine attached to it.
Okay.
So that's far we have tackled.
So far, have you issued any fines yet?
We have issued a fine to our own Department of Justice.
Wow.
And
wow. Are they not cutting your budget?
we may suffer that, unfortunately. But then we have said, let's be brave and do our work without fear or favor. where they had suffered a breach. So we investigated that, and then it ended up with that fine. They are challenging it. It's a matter that is in our courts.
I heard about that.
So there, we wouldn't want to comment any further than that.
Yes.
But we are saying that our way of enforcement is a bit different. There's an enforcement committee which help us. We've had other matters. I was reporting on the South African Police Services, where we also issued an enforcement notice, and the recommendations were that it is a matter where they had leaked any information they were investigating of some people who got raped, unfortunately. They were investigating and then formed a WhatsApp group of police just investigating, which is not a problem. But the problem was when that information was leaked outside that WhatsApp group, and it ended up in the wide public space. So we then made a recommendation through the enforcement committee, which said that they must do three things. Firstly, apologize publicly to the victims and individually to those victims, but they must take disciplinary actions against those police officials who were involved.
Okay.
They have since implemented that.
Okay.
And
there were no fines or compensation
there were no fines, but
to the persons whose rights have been violated?
There were no fines on compensation, but what happened is that the disciplinary action has resulted in some of those people losing their jobs, being expelled from work. That in a way gives confidence to the public that the affected people, our law gives them the right to then, after we've issued, to go to the court for compensation. So that can happen.
Wow, that's exciting. I mean, that is exciting. Are you publishing any of these things on your maybe your website and all of that? Because really, for me, from the regulatory point, publication of some of these enforcement actions and decisions is quite important, for people to also see and know. Are you doing that currently?
Yes, we're doing that.
Some of them are not there. You are?
We are doing that. We're also, notifying the public through the media.
Okay.
We issue media statements on these matters where we've taken action.
Okay.
We also put them on our website. So sometimes we've got press conferences where we sort of make them
noise
about them.
Yeah. Okay, Baker, let me come to you. So I see some interesting approaches to enforcement coming in here. And I know that you're still maybe a baby in the enforcement space. But what are you anticipating and what are you seeing, right, in respect of that?
Yes, we have the strategies which we are implementing in regard to do with enforcement. But something which is clear to us, which has always been, even with regard to other activities that we've been able to do, is collaboration.
Okay.
And most especially to do with the powers or what can be done under the Ugandan law. Collaboration is key. So, like what we've done, getting the detectives, even with the prosecutors, there are other forms of enforcing compliance that we've also undertaken, working with the primary regulators of these entities.
Okay.
So, with the National Bureau for NGOs, who regulates the NGOs, starting with the registration. So, that is something that we are seeing.
Okay.
And it's being effective because it has also been done with others, Lotteries and Gaming Regulatory Board, for those in the betting industry. So from this, we believe our strategies will be able to work. But even then, where, we've used the traditional methods of powers which are just within us, what is also clear is where the breaches or the violation is actually coming from, and it's usually the third parties. So in the short time that we've been able to do this within the 2 years, at least now we are getting a better sense of, yes, if we are to enforce compliance, it shouldn't just be about reaching out to the company, it's telling us it has the policies, it has the contracts, but how about what is it doing in regard to the third parties?
Okay. So if I could grant your wishes, right? And I'm going to give you the opportunity to grant just one wish. From your regulatory perspective, what would be that one big wish you would want if I could grant that? And that question would be to both of you. Mr. Mosala, you could start, or as a regulator, what would be your one big wish?
Our one big wish would be to be truly independent.
I like that.
Our law says we are independent. We report to the National Assembly, which is Parliament. But you see, the manner in which we are funded a little bit takes away that independence, because we are funded through the fiscus. The very departments like our National Treasury that we must enforce laws to are the ones who must decide our budget. And that in itself, brings some subtle fears in us sometimes. So we feel that if we can achieve true independence and we tackle everyone in the country, be they in the private sector, in the government sector, fairly, and we ensure that, we protect personal information in terms of our mandate, that would help.
I love your wish. That's a very big one. Mr. Baker, your one big wish.
I'm wondering if I can top that wish. So it's that wish. I can just add a subset of that wish.
You also want that same wish. Okay.
Okay. The big wish really is around, I can call it financial independence in one way or another. Financial independence in the sense that the office has so many powers. Most of them require budgetary support. So when it's limited, as you are aware, the investigations require resources, getting statements, they should be certified, presenting evidence in courts of law. So clearly that is the big wish, because when you are to reflect and we are looking at enforcement, if we are ready to go ahead with enforcement, we really need to have that financial independence, with sort of the support. So basically that is it.
Oh, wow. I don't know whether I am praying. I think at this point, as a Christian, I can pray for independence of our regulators, across the digital rights landscape, particularly data protection, because I completely agree with you. The independence is very important. But whilst we're praying for independence, let me come back and then just take your final remarks, right? Because a lot of us, and I want to hinge on some of the issues you had raised, is it possible to have true independence? Is it really possible? Because we have the government structures, we have the systems through which our laws are passed, right? And then the structures of voting for monies to come into your coffers, more or less, is the same in a way. So are we shooting at, something that is impossible when we ask for true independence?
I would say it's 98% possible. I'll tell you why I say that. One, if you raise your own funds, if you're allowed to raise your own funds like they do in the UK, where the public registers with the with the regulator, then they pay a fee for registration.
Yeah.
They review, they renew
Yes.
the fees on a periodic basis. Then you raise almost 90% of your funding, and then 10% can come from the fiscus. In that way, you start doing nobody will talk to you.
Anyhow.
You still have responsibilities in terms of our act to report to certain reports to the minister, certain reports to parliament. But in terms of just doing your work, you'll be able to really use your resources to help the regulator to do its work. So I believe that can give you close to 90% independence, because without funding, you can't even take big players. You think twice if you've got to take them there. You don't have the resources.
Yes. Baker?
The independence, it's a good question, which everyone asks, can you really be independent of the structures that set you up?
Yes.
I believe in one way or another it can be possible. At least I'll speak to the financial independence. Similar to because we collect money through registration fees. So if we can collect that money, and if we had the wish, then possibly we would be given I could say 50% to be able to cover our budget. Then, of course, government laws say you take it to the treasury, then the treasury
I'm always afraid of government treasuries.
So if that could be revised, it could greatly help, because independence beyond the other forms of independence, financial independence is very key. And if we are making the money, at least a conversation should be had of what could be returned to fund our operations.
All too soon, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. All too soon, we've come to the end of yet another episode. And as you heard it, for us to be serious about data protection, we really need to empower our regulators. And I have quite been excited about the fact that there's quite a lot already happening on the continent in terms of enforcement, but clearly we still need to ensure that our regulators are truly independent, just to quote their words. And so this is also an appeal to our governments to, we shouldn't be playing lip service to the independence of data protection regulators across the continent. It's time, and it's a very critical factor to socioeconomic development, to digital transformation, and the growth that we are perceiving. Thank you once again, gentlemen, for joining us. And I want to invite all our viewers once again to subscribe to our page and do well to join us on our next episode. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.